Tom Hartmann here with you, and Tom Weis is in the studio with me. He's the president of Climate Crisis Solutions, the website Ride4, F-O-R, ride4renewables.org. And Tom, you just completed a 485-mile bicycle ride to raise awareness about the Keystone XL pipeline. Is that a good snapshot summary of what's up?
Yeah, and specifically the southern leg of the Keystone XL pipeline.
Yeah, the northern leg has been there for quite some time.
Yeah, the Keystone 1 project was built in 2010, and that's what TransCanada is getting ready to tap into with the southern leg of the Keystone XL pipeline. Mm-hmm. So, but the northern leg, when we talk about the northern leg, that's a whole separate project. Mm-hmm. What happened, I call it bait and switch. Yeah. Back in 2011, November of 2011, President Obama made the big pronouncement he was going to delay a decision on the Keystone XL cross-border permit. Right. That's when a lot of environmental leaders celebrated, declared victory. It was not a victory. It was only a delay. But what he did, here's the bait and switch part. A few months later, President Obama flew down to Cushing, Oklahoma, the pipeline crossroads of the world, and he directed his administration to fast-track the construction of the southern leg, which is they're going to tap into the Keystone 1, which was built in 2010, and that gives him access.
The southern leg is the one that goes down to the Koch brothers refinery in the Gulf Coast.
Down the Gulf Coast, yes.
Yeah.
So, and that gives TransCanada access to the refineries and the ports, which is what they want more than anything.
Right, because they want to get that they want to get that carbon out of this country and get it off to China and England and the northern parts of South America, Brazil, I guess. And
exactly.
Wherever else they can, after they've refined it.
Exactly.
They want to leave the poison here in the United States.
Sure, and dump the poison along the way, because the first Keystone pipeline that I'm referring to, the Keystone 1, spilled 12 times in its first 12 months of operation. Wow. So we know this is coming. And, and we're just being treated as a sacrifice zone. And the northern leg, that has to be stopped too. But that has been what most of the environmental groups have been talking about, that cross-border permit. But while they've been talking about that, the southern leg is now 95% completed. So we've got Texas landowners like Michael Bishop and Julia Trigg Crawford who are still fighting down in Texas.
I think it was Julia was on with Daryl Hannah on this program.
I think you were, yes.
Fighting that. Yeah.
Daryl's been amazing.
She has. She's really been working on this thing. We're talking with Tom Weis. He's the president of Climate Crisis Solutions, ride4renewables.org. And Climate Crisis Solutions has a website too, right?
It does. I haven't focused much on it. That's my business arm, and I haven't been doing any business because I've been too busy fighting these pipelines.
Yeah, there you go. So ride4renewables.org is the website, and check it out. And Tom, in Detroit and in Chicago, there are these huge piles of basically poison. It's like almost coal, but not quite. It still contains an enormous amount of carbon, but it can't be burned in the United States because it violates our Clean Air Act. How did these giant piles, and it's blowing over mostly poor minority neighborhoods, how did these giant piles of poison come to be in Detroit and Chicago and other places in the Midwest? Tell me the story of this.
You're talking about the pet coke issue. I'm not well steeped in that. To be quite honest,
my understanding is this is what's left over when you refine coal tar, this kind of stuff that we're bringing down from Canada. That the residual product that's left over is. Because it's basically bituminous coal,
that's my understanding as well. Yes,
and they're functionally powdering it, mixing it with water and some basically a little bit of oil and pumping it down the pipeline. And so when they refine it, what's left over isn't just the normal refinery output, but it's this kind of fly ash stuff, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, so, I just want to say that's just. I'm glad you raised it because that's another byproduct of this whole process.
And the Gulf Coast is now going to be swimming in this stuff. Although, I guess, there are countries where it's legal to burn this stuff, like China. And so if they refine it down on the Gulf Coast, then they can get it out of the United States. But
I'm sure they'll be barging it there.
You bet.
Overseas.
But it's like we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, tar sands should be stopped, period. I mean, we can't be mining tar sands. I mean, we need to be getting off of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. We need to transition like yesterday.
Yeah.
And so
now there was a piece a week or so ago. We did a show on it here, where just the Koch brothers themselves might make as much as $100 billion from the Keystone Pipeline.
Yes.
I mean, they're not even worth that much. No wonder.
Yeah.
No wonder. The people would fund the Heartland Institute or these other right-wing groups that are engaged in aggressive climate change denial.
Sure.
I mean, you spend a few $1,000,000 here and there, or even tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to make $100 billion.
Right.
It's like, whoa.
And this is one of their last stands. I mean, this is a very desperate act on the part of the fossil fuel industry, but it's a very profitable one, obviously, for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So what can Americans do?
Well, one thing is Americans can support our brave fellow Americans like Michael Bishop and Julia Trigg Crawford, two Texas landowners who are still duking it out with TransCanada and with the federal government down in Texas. So
how?
They can support their legal defense funds, and you can find them on the web
easily
enough.
From your website for that?
I'm going to put some up after this show so that people...
So you can go to rideforrenewables.org.
Yeah, starting tomorrow. I will have those on my website for both landowners. But they could support their lawsuits. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing at this juncture in terms of stopping the Southern Leg.
Calling your elected representatives might be a good idea.
Well, that never hurts.
Raise some political
Tom.
Right?
It's just unfortunate how much oil money is saturating our
pull together
elected representatives.
Rent a local hall or get the local school to give you the gymnasium for the night, and then invite your elected state senators, state representatives, your U.S. Congress person, whoever it may be. Invite them to show up, and if they don't show up, put a cardboard dummy of them and debate them.
Well, I love that idea.
The
empty chair, the cardboard dummy.
Yeah, this is actually not my idea. This is Bernie Sanders' idea.
Well, leave it to Bernie Sanders.
He's like, somebody called up once from some town in I think it was Oklahoma or something, someplace where they had some Republican right-wing crazy who was the member of House of Representatives, and they said, I can't talk to this guy. I can't lobby him. He doesn't, he ignores my phone call. What do I do? And Bernie said, rent a hall, put out the notices that he's invited, give him a formal invitation, and if he doesn't show up, debate a cardboard figure. I don't know that was Bernie's exact words, but something to that effect. It's
great.
It's like create a town hall. They will show up. More often than not, you'll shame them into it.
Well, here's another thing people can do, Tom, is show up at the White House like we did yesterday. We had a small but incredibly committed band of climate justice leaders who were at the White House yesterday, and we held up a banner that had a big photo of Michael Bishop's property being destroyed by TransCanada, the Keystone XL pipeline down in Texas. Yeah. And the title was President Obama's tar sands pipeline, because he approved this, he owns it. Yeah. He owns it.
Well, which means call the White House comment line.
Yeah, absolutely. And he could stop this. I mean, if his administration can conjure up a way to start this pipeline, they can conjure up a way to stop it.
Yeah. Although, it almost seems like the best thing to do right now is to really, really be pushing for a carbon tax. Because
on the big picture, I think that's one of the most effective things we can do.
Then we're going to reach a point where they're going to start looking at other things to run through this pipeline.